Victor Martin was a powerful and successful man. From a young age, he had stood out in business and built a financial empire. He lived in a massive mansion with glass walls offering a panoramic view of the city, perfectly maintained gardens, and a staff that attended to his every need. He had everything money could buy: luxury cars, designer clothes, and a calendar full of important appointments. On the other hand, Camille lived on the streets. She was a brave and determined young woman, but life had not been kind to her. Since childhood, she had faced hardships and losses that led her to live as a beggar. She wore worn-out clothes. Despite all the adversities, Camille kept a resilient spirit and a heart full of hope. It was a sunny afternoon, and the city buzzed with the movement of people coming and going. Victor, as usual, was in a hurry, walking through the busy streets while talking on the phone about an important business deal. His eyes were fixed on the ground, his mind absorbed in work, and he barely noticed when his phone slipped from his hand and fell onto the sidewalk. He kept walking, unaware that his device was now lost among the hurried steps of passers-by. Across the street, Camille witnessed the scene. She had spent the morning trying to get some money to buy food and was now sitting in a corner, resting. That's when she saw the phone fall to the ground. The people around didn't seem to notice or care, but Camille, with her sharp eyes and kind heart, couldn't ignore it. Quickly standing up, she ran to where the phone had fallen. It was an expensive device, clearly belonging to someone wealthy. Camille looked around and spotted Victor walking away. She knew she had to return the phone, even if it meant running after a stranger. With quick steps, she reached Victor, who was still lost in thought. "Sir, sir," she called out, her voice hesitant but firm. Victor stopped and turned around, surprised to see a young woman in shabby clothes approaching him. "You dropped this," said Camille, holding out the phone to him. Victor's eyes widened as he recognized his device. He took it from her hand, his face showing a mix of surprise and relief. thank you so much," he said, still trying to process what had happened. "I didn't even realize I had lost it." Camille smiled shyly and shrugged, as if it were nothing. "It's nothing," she replied, ready to walk away. But something about her made Victor stop her. Maybe it was the kindness in her eyes or the simplicity of her gesture. He suddenly felt curious about this young woman. "Wait," he said before she could disappear into the crowd. I'd like to thank you somehow." He was astonished that a homeless woman, surely hungry, had gone out of her way to return his phone. Realizing how rare such an act was, he asked, "How can I reward you for this good deed?" She shook her head firmly. "Sir, I've lost everything in life, but I still have my character and my dignity. This cost me nothing, no reward needed." Once again, he was surprised by her refusal to accept any compensation for her good deed. He thanked her and went on his way. Night fell over the city and the sky turned dark and threatening. Victor had just left an exhausting meeting and was on his way to his mansion, longing for some peace and quiet. But as he drove through the rain-slicked streets, something caught his attention. A lone figure huddled under an awning, trying to find shelter from the storm. He slowed down and looked closer. It was Camille. Her hair clung to her face from the rain, and her clothes were soaked. She was trembling from the cold, looking tired and helpless. Victor felt a tightening in his chest at the sight of her. He couldn't just drive past. He had to do something. As the car rolled by, his thoughts raced. She won't survive this cold and rain tonight. She'll die out here. With a heavy heart, he ordered his driver to turn around and stop in front of her. Stepping out into the storm, he approached the awning and said, "You'll freeze to death if you stay here. Go home, miss." She looked up at him and replied, "I know, sir, but I have nowhere to go. God will help me through this rain. I have faith," she said, curling up under her tattered blankets. Unable to leave her there, waiting for a miracle, he said firmly, "Get in my car. You're not sleeping on the street tonight. Come on, it's too cold out here." "Miss," he called again, his voice nearly drowned out by the storm. She looked up, eyes white with surprise, to see him standing there. "Come with me," he said, extending his hand to help her up. "You can't stay out here in this storm." Camille hesitated for a moment, looking at him with a mixture of gratitude and mistrust. But feeling she had no other option, she accepted his hand and stood up. Together, they ran to the car, seeking refuge from the torrential rain. On the way, he noticed a few silent tears slipping down her face, marked by hardship, but he said nothing. Victor drove her to his mansion, where warmth and safety awaited them. He led Camille to the living room, where a fire crackled in the fireplace. He offered her dry clothes and a hot drink while she sat, still dazed by everything that had just happened. Soon after, he asked the housekeeper to take her to one of the guest rooms in the servants' quarters and provide her with whatever she needed. Anabelle, Victor's sister, had always been a constant presence in his mansion. She managed the household affairs with a sharp eye and a firm hand. So when she heard that her brother had brought a homeless woman to live with them, her reaction was immediate and fierce. Anabelle descended the stairs with quick, determined steps, her heels echoing through the marble halls. When she reached the living room, she found Camille sitting timidly on one of the sofas, looking at a magazine that clearly didn't belong to her. Anabelle frowned and, not bothering to hide her disapproval, went straight to Victor's office. "Victor, we need to talk. Now," she declared as she opened the door, her voice filled with indignation. Victor, who had been focused on his papers, looked up and saw the serious expression on his sister's face. "Of course, Anabelle, come in," he replied, trying to stay calm in the face of her obvious discontent. She stepped inside, closing the door behind her. "What is going on here? Who is that woman and why is she in our house?" Victor sighed, already anticipating how difficult the conversation would be. "Anabelle, this is Camille. She was in a difficult situation and needed help. I thought I could offer her a safe place to stay." Anabelle crossed her arms, clearly not satisfied with the explanation. "Victor, you can't just bring a stranger into the house. We don't even know who she is or what she's capable of." "I understand your concerns, Anabelle," Victor began, his voice calm. "But Camille returned my phone when I lost it. She showed herself to be an honest person. And later, when I saw her shivering in the rain, I just couldn't ignore it. I felt I had to help her." Anabelle shook her head, still distrustful. "Victor, I know you have a big heart, but we can't let emotion blind us to potential risks. Our safety is at stake here." Victor looked at his sister with a firm expression and said, "Anabelle, I believe this property still belongs to me, and I have the right to welcome whomever I wish. I've already made my decision. I'm asking you to trust me. Give Camille a chance. She needs a safe place to start over." Anabelle was outraged by the girl's presence in the mansion. Without another word, she stormed out, leaving the poor woman feeling like an intruder, ashamed by the harshness of her sister's words. After resting for a while, Victor went to the servants' quarters to check that everything was in order. He knocked on the door, and Camille opened it. For a moment, he couldn't believe that the woman standing before him was the same one he had brought home. Still surprised, he asked, "Are you all right?" She nodded. "What's your name?" he asked. "Camille," she said, seizing the moment to express her gratitude. "Mr. Victor, She began, her voice trembling but full of sincerity. "I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for the shelter, the clothes, and the food you've given me. I truly don't know how to repay you." Victor smiled softly and waved his hand, as if to downplay the importance of his gestures. "Please don't worry about that, Camille. What I did is simply the least anyone should do in a situation like yours." Camille felt her eyes fill with tears, but this time they were tears of relief and gratitude. "You have no idea how much this means to me. On the streets, no one looks at you, no one cares. And suddenly I meet someone like you, someone who not only sees me, but helps me so generously. It's something I never imagined." Victor moved closer and sat beside her, keeping a respectful distance, yet close enough for Camille to feel his support. "You deserve this help, Camille. Everyone deserves a chance to start again. I just hope that here you'll find some peace and safety." The housekeeper, who stood quietly in the background, watched the scene with a gentle smile. She knew Victor had a kind heart, but seeing his compassion in action moved her deeply. Camille looked around the room, feeling a little more at ease. "Everything here is so beautiful, so different from what I'm used to. It feels like a dream." Victor chuckled softly. "Well, I hope it's a good dream then. And remember, you don't need to worry about anything now. Rest and regain your strength." The next morning, Victor instructed the housekeeper to let Camille know that she could stay in the room for as long as she needed, since the weather was still bad. He went off to work, but his mind was far from the contracts and papers scattered on his desk. Images of Camille, her grateful expression, her hopeful eyes, and yes, her beauty wouldn't leave his mind. He struggled to focus, but the memories of the previous night kept returning. When he got home, Victor instructed the housekeeper to tell Camille that she would be joining them for dinner that evening. He also handed her several bags of clothes he had bought so that Camille could dress properly. When Camille descended the grand staircase of the mansion wearing the elegant dress Victor had chosen for her, she felt radiant. Her hair was neatly arranged, and she wore the jewelry with simple grace. She hoped that dinner would be her chance to show her gratitude. As she entered the dining room, all eyes turned toward her, but it was Anabelle's gaze that struck her like a blow. Anabelle, her face twisted with disdain, shot a sharp glare in Camille's direction. "I can't believe you're allowing a beggar to sit at our table," she said, her voice dripping with contempt. "I refuse to share dinner with someone like that." Camille's heart sank. Anabelle's words hit her like a slap. She tried to keep her composure, but tears began to fall. With trembling steps, Camille walked toward the door, ignoring Victor's calls after her. She didn't want to stay in a place where she wasn't welcome. As she left the mansion, tears streamed freely down her face. She felt foolish for thinking she could belong somewhere like that, for believing her life could change so drastically overnight. She ran through the streets, ignoring the rain that had started to fall again. Each step carried her further from the mansion and closer to the harsh life she knew so well. The cold wind cut through the night as Camille once again huddled beneath an awning, clutching the dirty blankets. They were her only protection against the cold. Tears streamed down her face, mingling with the rain falling from the dark sky. Determined to find Camille and do whatever he could to help her, Victor left the mansion under the relentless rain. He searched the streets, guided by instinct and the memory of where he had first found her. Finally, he saw her, curled up beneath an awning, looking so fragile and lonely in the cold, wet night. His heart ached at the sight, and he approached carefully, afraid to frighten her. "Camille," he called softly, his voice breaking through the sound of the rain. She looked up, surprised to see him there. Her face was wet with tears, her expression a mix of distrust and disbelief. "Victor," she murmured, unsure what to do. He sat down beside her, offering a gentle smile. "May I sit?" She nodded, and he settled next to her. The warmth of his presence brought a hint of comfort to the freezing night. "I'm so glad I found you," he said quietly. "Find you for what, Victor? I can very well stay here, in my own little corner," she murmured. He looked at her seriously and replied, "I want to understand you better. I want to know about your story, your life, what led you to live on the streets." Camille shrugged, unable to find the words to express the storm of emotions consuming her. Victor waited patiently, giving her time to gather her thoughts. Finally, she began to speak, telling him her story with raw honesty. She spoke about her difficult childhood, her journey to the streets, and the daily struggles of surviving in such a merciless world. From losing her parents as a child to the harsh years spent in orphanages and the few opportunities she ever had. She told him how her faith in God had been her anchor, guiding her to stay away from paths of theft or prostitution. Amid tears and laughter, the two discovered a special connection that transcended time and adversity. They laughed together over Camille's childhood mischief in orphanages, finding light even in the darkest of memories. Victor shared stories from his own journey, revealing his struggles and triumphs. And as the hours passed, they found comfort in each other, diving into a deep and meaningful conversation that drew them closer and closer. He admired her courage and resilience in the face of so much hardship and felt a growing bond between them, a mutual understanding that went beyond social barriers. As the night unfolded, they continued talking, sharing dreams and stories. Victor realized he had found something precious on that rainy night, the beginning of a love story that would change their lives forever. As the sun began to rise on the horizon, Victor looked into Camille's eyes and let his heart speak. "Camille," he began softly, his voice filled with emotion. "From the moment I saw you, something changed inside of me. I can't deny what I feel anymore. I like you. I'd like the chance to get to know you better and to be by your side. Will you be my girlfriend?" Camille was speechless, her heart pounding in her chest as she absorbed Victor's sincere words. She had never imagined that someone like him could be interested in her, a simple, homeless woman with such a painful past. But there, in that magical dawn, she felt a spark of hope ignite within her. Tears rolled down Camille's face, but this time they weren't tears of sorrow. They were tears of happiness. With her heart overflowing with joy and hope, Camille looked into Victor's eyes and nodded with a radiant smile. "Yes, Victor," she said, her voice steady and full of determination. "I will be your girlfriend. Thank you for making me feel special." Victor held her hands tenderly, promising to care for her and protect her forever. And there, in that magical dawn, they took the first step toward a shared future, one where love would be the guiding light leading them on their journey of happiness and fulfillment. They discovered that true love transcends the barriers of social class, material wealth, and status. It was the deep and genuine connection they shared that united them, bringing light and joy into their lives.